So I'm going to talk about the right amount of bedding and boarding that should be in the trailer while transporting the market-sized pigs to the slaughterhouse. So a lot of pigs are transported from one place to the other because of today's production system, like multi-site production system. And the hogs that are transported, like over 100 million pigs are transported from the finishing site to the slaughterhouse each year. And the rate of dead on arrival is estimated to be 0.2% each year, and similar is the rate of non-ambulatory pigs. And it is estimated that almost 40,000 pigs per year experience a negative welfare while being transported. So the major issues are the welfare issues, and because of the welfare issues, it's not only the concern of the public, but also the industry, both the farmers and the plant. So it has a big money value also, even if the percentage looks so small, like 0.4%. 0.4% of over 100 million pigs comes out to be a huge number. So just a little bit of background and overview from the past scientific literatures. It has been shown that at temperatures like from freezing to almost 40 degrees Fahrenheit, there were fewer non-ambulatory, non-injured pigs with the dry bedding compared to the pigs being transported without bedding. However, the percentage of dead on arrival and injured on transit pigs were less with the dry bedded trailers compared to with no bedding. But the percentage of non-ambulatory, non-injured pigs was higher as compared to no or wet bedding, and this was a finding of Sutherland et al. 2009. So, however, overall, there was no effect of bedding on total losses because the dead on arrival would be higher in the summer, whereas the non-ambulatory pigs would be higher in the winter. So these graphs show how the dead on arrival and non-ambulatory pigs would differ with different outside air temperature, whereas the injured on trailers did not differ with the outside temperature. So the field data indicate that the rate of non-ambulatory, non-injured pigs increased in cold weather, but dead on arrival rate increased with the outside temperature. So this data shows how dead on arrival would increase linearly with the outside increase in temperature, starting from 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So there are different measures to reduce the transportation losses, and some of the measures that can be taken to reduce the transportation losses are selection of persistent genetic line, but this has been an area that has not been covered yet. There are different researches going on, but we don't have a conclusion on that, so we do not know about this right genetic line of the pigs to be used to reduce the transport losses. And also the other method to reduce the transport losses will be proper handling techniques, and these can be implemented immediately, and these are about the peoples and procedures who handle the pigs while loading, unloading, and transporting the pigs. And the other area of research, or the other way we can reduce the transportation loss, would be improved facilities if needed. And this would be providing the right amount of bedding, the bedding which the pigs actually use while being transported, the proper amount of ventilation. That would mean how much the side holes should be boarded or plugged in. That would provide the right amount of air circulation inside the trailer. And also the other study would be misting the pigs while being transported, so watering the pigs while transporting them during summer season. So all of these three areas are being covered in this research, but I'm presenting only the part of bedding and a small portion of boarding, because boarding and misting research are ongoing. So the ultimate research goal is to develop industry recommendations for internal trailer environment management protocols that will maintain pig comfort and core body temperature and improve pig welfare and minimize transport losses. So TQA handbook is the guideline that everybody uses while transporting the pigs, and the driver code of ethics in the TQA handbook suggests that the transporter must have access to clean bedding approved by the packer and must be used during transport. And also it suggests to provide extra bedding while being transported during winter. So it would be providing an extra amount of wood savings, wheat straw, and corn stubble during winter. So this table is from the TQA handbook, and it suggests that when the temperature is less than 10 degrees Fahrenheit, its heavy amount of bedding should be used, and likewise 10 to 20 Fahrenheit medium, 20 to 40 medium, and 40 to 50 and more than 50 light amount of bedding should be used. Likewise, the side slats should be 10% open or 90% closed when the temperature is less than 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and likewise it increases with the temperature. The open side slats should increase with the increasing temperature. And so I'm going to talk about the bedding study that we conducted in 2011. So the objective of this study was to define the amount of bedding requirement of pigs during transportation in commercial setting during cold weather, mild weather, and warm weather. So this table shows the design of this study and the amount of bedding used, the temperature range on which we conducted the research. So during January and February, we used 6 bales and 12 bales, so the actual treatment were 6 bales and 12 bales of bedding inside the trailer. And during March and May, 3 different labels of bedding, 3, 6, and 12 bags of bedding was used, wood savings, and the temperature ranged from 28 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And June and July, 4 different levels of bedding, 3, 5, 7, and 9 were used, and the temperature ranged between 61 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And most of the research was conducted in Iowa, and some in Missouri, and some in Minnesota. So just for the background of the research, these are the pictures that show how different labels of bedding would look like. The first picture shows that it is just a 1 bale per deck in a straight deck trailer, and it would be 3 by 8 of inches. And the other picture shows 3 bales, and it would be 5 by 8 of an inch, and while using 6 bales of bedding per deck would be an inch deep. So January and February would be the cold weather, during which a total of 174 trailers were observed, and the total number of pigs transported in those 174 trailers were almost 29,000. And during March and May, when the weather was mild, 345 trailers were observed, and it comes out to be 58,000 pigs total. And in June and July, that's during the warm weather, 254 trailers were observed, carrying almost 42,000 pigs in them. So it is a total of 773 trailers transporting 128,000 pigs. So this is how we conducted the research, and the information we collected at finishing site was like we randomly assigned the bedding, actually with the hauling companies and the drivers cooperated with us, and then they assigned the random bedding at a site. And so we collected information on the level of bedding, number of loads on that bedding, and boarding percentage. And in selected trailers, 5 sensors were installed, like 4 inside the trailer and 1 outside the trailer, to collect the data on temperature and humidity, and this would collect those data every 5 minutes while transporting the pigs, like starting from loading to unloading. And also different handling methods, handling devices, and intensity. Handling intensity were collected, and handling intensity was rated from a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being mildest and 5 being aggressive or abusive. And at finishing site, the other information that were collected were number of vocalizations, slips, falls, signs of stress while loading the pigs, and other management aspects of the farm, like type of farm, facilities like pen size, aisle, suit, floor types, walls, etc., and weather information, also like temperature, humidity, and wind speed. And we actually collected surface temperature on 5 different randomly selected pigs when they were loaded. And the temperature was measured with a laser gun on the flank or side of 10 randomly selected pigs. And at the plant, actually we recorded air temperature, humidity, and surface temperature of the pigs as described in the finishing site, and the handling devices, handling intensity, vocalization, slips and falls, times of arrival, waiting, and unloading was also recorded. And we collected bedding samples to determine the moisture percentage of the bedding, and we recorded dead on arrival, non-ambulatory, and dead and down in each trip. So we actually looked at the level of bedding, air temperature, and interaction of bedding and air temperature, and analyzed those things. So these are the ranges of different parameters that we measured, and loading time ranged from 13 to 94 minutes, and transit time ranged from 16 to 459 minutes, and waiting time at plant ranged from 0 to 198 minutes, and total dead and down in a trip ranged from 0 to 8, and handling intensity ranged from 1 to 5, and almost 10% of the loads had a handling intensity of 5, that is aggressive behavior on the handlers at the finishing site, and only one case out of 429, that is 0.23% of observation at the plant had a handling intensity of 5. So these are the some of the results that we found. We found that there was no bedding effect. So that means that there was no any advantage of using extra amount of bedding. So the percentage of dead on arrival, percentage of non-ambulatory, and percentage of dead and down did not differ with the level of bedding or the amount of bedding used inside the trailer. And with for the outside temperature effect, there was no difference within that range during the winter. These data are just for January and February. So during winter, there was no effect of outside temperature on dead on arrival, non-ambulatory, and dead and total dead and down. So these are the numbers for March and May. Also, during this season, 3 different levels of bedding were used, 3, 6, and 12 bags of bedding in each trailer, and there was no any bedding effect. So there is also, it showed that there is no any advantage of using extra amount of bedding during the mild weather. And also during the mild weather, the DOA was not affected by the outside air temperature, whereas non-ambulatory peaks were higher in the freezing temperature and decreased with the outside temperature, increased outside temperature. And dead and down total dead and down percentage had only a tendency but was not significant, so it was higher in the cold temperature at freezing temperature as compared to the other temperatures. So June and July, during this is during the summer, and also there was a tendency towards dead and down percentage by bedding level, and it increased with the increased bedding level, and also similarly non-ambulatory peaks also increased with the level of bedding like 3 and 5. And the total dead and down was also affected by the bedding level, that is the level of bedding, the higher level of bedding was harmful to the pigs as compared to the lower. So during the summer, there was also effect of outside temperature, total dead and down increased with outside air temperature. Also, the dead and arrival increased with the outside temperature. whereas there was not any significant effect of outside temperature on non-ambulatory pigs. So this is the overall dead on arrival, non-ambulatory, and dead and down percentage with outside temperature. This is a combined of all 3 seasons. So dead on arrival actually increased with the outside temperature. You can see it increased after 25 or 77 degrees Fahrenheit and then kept increasing after that. Whereas non-ambulatory was higher at lower temperature, decreased again in the mild temperature, and again increased. And the similar trend was also seen in dead and down percentage with outside temperature. So we collected surface skin temperature on 10 randomly selected pigs while loading and unloading. And this is the surface skin temperature while unloading the pigs at the plant with respect to outside temperature. Outside air temperature, and the picture is a laser gun we actually use to measure the temperature of the pigs. So it increased linearly with the outside temperature. When we correlated the outside temperature with total dead and down, it increased linearly after almost 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it kept increasing up to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So outside temperature can reflect the total dead and down percentage of pigs while transporting them. So these are some of the pictures of the bedding that look like inside the trailer. So it ranged from, like, the fresh bedding would be about 5 to 10% moist, whereas the moisture level would differ, range up to like 75%, depending upon the load, like number of loads on that bedding and and also on the season. So these are the pictures of the used bedding inside the trailer. So we measured the inside temperature and humidity and outside temperature and humidity while transporting the pigs using the sensors inside the trailer. So this graph shows how the inside temperature will increase while the pigs are loaded inside it. It will increase on the first part while loading the pigs, and it will decrease after the truck starts to move on the road. So however, it will be higher than outside temperature. And again, it would increase when the trucks stop on the road or while they have to wait at the plant. So the inside temperature would increase while stopping or loading or while they have to wait at the plant. Whereas the relative humidity, it would increase while loading, and also increase while stopping, but while moving it would be lower than outside temperature, outside humidity. So stopping while transporting the pigs on the road would increase the temperature as well as increase the humidity, which will have feels like temperature would be higher than what needs to be. So these are the conclusions on bedding study. So during cold weather, when temperature is less than 32 degrees Fahrenheit, there was no significant bedding effect. So the conclusion is that the added bedding will have no advantage beyond 6 bales. But we don't have any data on 3 bales of bedding during winter. So as of now, we can only recommend that using extra bedding, more than 6 bags of bedding, while transporting the pigs would be of no extra advantage. And similarly, during the mild weather, 32 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, there was no significant bedding effect. So added bedding would have no advantage above 3 bales. So the recommended bales of wood savings per trailer would be 3. And during warm weather, which is above 70 degrees Fahrenheit, there was significant bedding effect, and the added bedding would have negative effect on dead on arrival pigs. So the recommended level would be 3 bags of bedding per trailer. However, we don't have any data on no bedding used inside the trailer during summer. So this is just a rough economic analysis. So almost 420,000 pigs are processed per day in the United States. And if we even calculate 170 pigs per trailer, then it would come out to be almost 2,500 trailers or trucks per day on the road. Even if we consider like 50% of trucks change the bedding each day, then the trailers using new bedding per day will be 1,200. So the number of daily bales at 3 extra bales per day in summer would come out to be a total of 3,700, which would be almost $22,000 if we consider $6 per bale. And during winter, using 6 extra bags of bales would come out to be almost $44,000. And even if we consider 30 days of cold, then the added bedding cost would be almost $1.3 million, and 120 days, that is 4 months of warm weather, extra bedding cost would be $2.6 million, and the total bedding cost would be almost $4 million per year. So cold weather increased non-ambulatory pigs, and the warm weather increased dead on arrival, and no interaction between bedding and air temperature was found. Also, we can conclude that peak surface temperature changes with outside air temperature, and in warm weather, increased surface temperature can predict the dead on arrival. So overuse of bedding causes increased bedding cost for no return in every season, and increased pig losses dead and down with excessive bedding use, and at least a $4 million economic cost just by using extra bedding, but we still have to analyze the exact pig losses due to extra bedding, and a welfare problem in warm weather due to increased dead and down pigs. So we can decide whether to use the lower amount of bedding or the higher amount of bedding. So what next we can do is bedding needed and positive for the pigs while transporting them? So we can examine 0 bales in summer and less than 6 bales in cold weather for efficacy, and define the boarding needs for the industry and define misting requirements. So for the boarding study, we just started this study, but the temperature went high, so we could not do it and we usually try to do it from 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, because below 32, the side holes would be closed, like almost 90%, and during summer, all the holes would be open. So we need the right temperature to conduct this study. So there are 3 different treatments, and from 10 to 19 degrees Fahrenheit, current TQA requirement or recommendation is 75% closed or boarded, and our treatment would be 50, 75, and 90. And 20 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, recommendation is 50%, and our treatment is 25, 50, and 75. And 40 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, recommended is 25%. And our treatment would be 0, 25, and 50%. And 50 to 60 Fahrenheit, it would be, the recommended is 0, and our treatment would be 0 and 25. And we could not increase the boarding percent during warm temperature because of welfare issues. So this is how a 25% boarded trailer would look like. So every 4th hole would be closed. So we again collected the same information at the plant, at the farm: bedding depth, boarding rate, trailer type, straight deck versus pot-bellied, air temperature, humidity, and loading time at the farm, and the data sheet completed at the farm site and handed to the driver for delivery to the researchers at the plant. So the truck status would be, again, The truck status would also be again assessed at the plant. So bedding status, boarding rate, strike deck versus spot, travel times, and other different times like arrival time, wait time, and time to unload, and air temperature, humidity, humidity inside the trailer and outside, and wind speed and wheel chill index also determined. And the peak temperature, again the surface skin temperature, and 10 randomly selected pigs would be collected, and transport loss incidents, non-ambulatory, dead on arrival, and trim loss per trailer, and audit of pigs coming off the trucks, like slips and falls, vocalization, incidents of frostbite, signs of stress. Till now, out of 400 trailers that we need to actually define the boarding percentage, we have completed only 74 trailers. So the analysis is not completed, so the data presented here is not a final one, it's just the preliminary data. So we have collected data on temperature minimum of 32 to 73 degree Fahrenheit. So if boarding percentage was less than 40%, then we called it low. 40 to 59 was called medium, and more than 59 was called high. So the results showed that whenever within this temperature range, just for 74 trailers out of 400 required, dead on arrival was higher when more holes were boarded or plugged. Non-ambulatory, non-injured pigs did not differ. Likewise, everything else other than dead on arrival was not different. So dead on arrival was higher when the boarding percentage was more than 59%. So euthanized on arrival also, it was also higher when the temperature was, when the boarding percentage was more than 59%. So the conclusion is dead on arrival is highest when boarded highest, non-ambulatory and dead on down did not differ with boarding percentage, and euthanized on arrival was highest when only highly boarded. And there is still more to come on this topic, maybe next seminar or sometime soon.